Hi everyone, this is Morgan, and in this video I'm going to talk about making your first actual enlarged print in the darkroom. This video picks up right where my video on making a contact sheet leaves off, so I'm counting on the fact that you've already gotten set up in the darkroom, you've already cleaned off your station. So let's just dive into making an actual print. First, you're going to go into the darkroom and take out the negative carrier from the enlarger. If you just finished making your first contact sheet, you're going to want to put away your contact glass. Here you see when I head back to my enlarger station, I'm going to move aside anything I have on my enlarger surface, and I'm going to find an easel. So that's probably the one you moved aside when you arrived at your enlarger. This is what an easel looks like. And a good first thing to do would be setting up your easel. When working with 35mm negatives, a good default size to set your easel to is 9 inches wide by 6 inches high. An important part of this is that you have 4 easel blades and they each need to be set. I'm going to show you this in white light so it's a little easier to see. So you can lift up the top of your easel to see the 4 blades. You can see that's the setting for one easel blade, another one. We have a setting at the top and on the left side also. It's easiest or best to set easel blades by lifting up the top of the easel slightly to adjust the slider here. To make my window 9 by 6 inches, I set the top and bottom rulers to 9 inches and the side windows, which I'm adjusting one of the side ones here, to 6 inches. The blades will move better again if the top of the easel is lifted up. So you should see I land on the 6. So you will be doing this not in the white lights like I am here, but under the amber safe lights. So just pay close attention to the numbers, look close, make sure you've got it set again to 9 by 6. The next stage requires that you grab the negative carrier out of the enlarger, take your negatives, and head to the light table with both. So we're going to put the negative that you would like to print into the negative carrier. This is the bottom of the negative carrier. You'll see it's not hinged together. This is the top. Lifting it up gives me the option to slide one of my rows of negatives in and allow one to be kind of framed in that window. So I'm going to choose to print this one. For me, it's negative number 12 on this roll. And I'm going to grab that strip of negatives and slide it in just so this one negative is visible. I'm going to show you that process here. It's not a complicated process. The only tricky thing about it is just making sure that your negative lines up really well, that you don't have a lot of empty border space, that you're mostly just seeing that one frame illuminated really clearly. So with your negative securely housed in the negative carrier, you're actually going to head right back into the darkroom and put the negative carrier, obviously now holding your negative, back into the enlarger. So when you turn your timer on, when you push that outlet on button, you'll see your image. It's likely your image will be really out of focus and fuzzy. So before I even kind of walk through that stage of it, I'm going to go back, and this is a video I did show you in the contact sheet video, but I want to remind you of some things about your enlarger's anatomy. So you have a crank at the back right side of your enlarger that raises or lowers your entire enlarger head. You also have an adjustment knob that's a bit closer that only affects focus. So you'll need to use both of these in tandem to get your image the right size so it fits in the window beautifully, and also the focus, which will of course affect if your image is in focus or not, but will also slightly affect the size of your projected image. So you're going to watch me tweak both settings for a while. Again, I'm starting to raise up my entire enlarger head, then trying to focus when I get closer. And I lift up the easel blades when I think I'm close to just double check that I'm, again, fully using the window. It's nice if your image actually lightly spills onto the easel blades. To check that my focus is perfect, I'm going to bring out this macro sight. And if you look through the macro sight, you should be able to see, obviously, an up-close view of your image, but also the individual film grains. So when you get it perfectly in focus, you should see the film grain looks really crisp. So this is a great final stage when you want to just double check that your image is ready to go and perfectly focused. So the next actual step here would be making a test strip. And I'm not going to show that phase just because it's identical to the process of making a test strip when you do a contact sheet, which I outlined in that previous video. So I just review that if you want a reminder on test strips. You just need to use that to figure out your correct exposure time. I'm picking up already later on in the process when I know my correct exposure time. So I'm going to dive right into making the actual print. One of the first things you should notice about your easel is that it has slots for paper to slide into. So when I lift this up, you should see I'm trying to put the leading edge of my paper into this slot. And when I place it down, that should mean my paper is always going to fit exactly in that window how I would like it to. So with the paper in place, I'm going to start my 12-second exposure time. So you'll see, again, I slide it in, make sure that leading edge goes into the slot, and then I press the start button on my timer. So obviously, we want to be really careful with prints. During exposure, don't drum your fingers on the enlarger table surface. Make sure you just step back, let it go, don't shake anything. And then now, just like in previous videos, I'm going to show you again, that first-person shooter style video. This is the same process you already went through. You're going to develop for 2 minutes. After about 20 or 30 seconds, if your exposure is pretty good, you should notice, like we're seeing here, that the image begins to appear. So our developer also uses an infectious development process, so you don't want to leave a print in much longer than 2 minutes, especially for consistency. If you ever felt like you wanted your print to just be a little darker, you could overcook it, but as a rule, try to just stick to a 2-minute development time. So again, my videos are sped up, so this is where we'll switch over to the stop bath. So you see me pick this up and let it, again, drip so that we're down to a single drip of developer, place it in the stop, replace the tongs, and then move on to our 30-second stop bath. So like with all chemical baths, make sure to agitate gently, maybe flip with the tongs a few times. But again, only 30 seconds needed. You can see I'm drip drying and moving on to fixing, replacing tongs, and then fixing being one of the most important stages. It's especially important to make sure that you constantly have new fixture chemistry coating your paper. Especially with your first few prints, you're going to be really excited, and A, you might want to pull it out of the fixer early, but B, once you're done fixing, like I'm about to be, you're going to want to take it immediately out to be viewed in the light, but please let it rinse for at least 30 seconds before viewing in white light. Not only is this better for your fingers in case you accidentally end up touching your print, but also you just don't want fixer chemistry floating around. So after about 30 seconds, you see I grab it, I put the print in a viewing tray, and I take it out into white light. And I end up being pretty happy with what I see. I feel like I have good detail in my highlights. I have some detail in my shadows. This print also has a pretty wide tonal range, so I'm happy with where we landed. If I wanted to try experimenting more with maybe changing out my contrast filter, maybe pushing it up to like a 2.5 or a 3, I could at least test that out. I could also try slightly longer exposure times. I could feel free to push this and play around with, but we got a good result. So I'm going to just move on for the demo and go back into the darkroom, wash this print for at least 10 minutes so it's really fully washed and all the fixers completely off my print before drying. And obviously, if you've watched that contact sheet video, we've talked about print drying, but just reminders, no test strips in the print dryer. Prints need to be very wet when they go into the machine, and they should slowly come out the other side. So assuming this is the end of your session, reminders to clean up your station when you are done. Obviously, you want to remove all your belongings, so pulling out your negative carrier, also remembering to pull out your contrast filter. Additionally, you want to clean and wipe down all aspects of your station that you cleaned and wiped down at the beginning of your session. So through these demos, you've actually watched me develop this film, make this contact sheet, and make this print. I wanted to give you a reminder to not forget to take notes if you haven't been doing that through this process. To explain why this is important, if you take notes, you could go into the darkroom a week later, a month later, 3 months later, and using the same enlarger and the same settings, make a really similar print. So if you ever look at a print and just want to tweak it, slightly improve upon it, you already have done so much of the work for yourself, and taking notes is the only way to ensure that that information is recorded. So it's also helpful for me, in case I have suggestions, I could tell you exactly how to improve a print. So thanks for making it to the end of the video, everybody. Good luck.